All right, I think I'm live. Let's give a couple minutes for folks to come in to the show. Let me know if you could hear me. Let me know if you could see me okay. Jordan Sheridan, status coup, live, Dem debate recap. Gonna give it a minute or two, let more people trickle in. Share this live stream. Press the like button. Press share. All of those good things. Let's see. Two. What an event. While people are coming in, I will write a few things in the super chat. This is a super chat. Let us know how you feel in the super chat. Hear you. CNN is trash. You are good. All right. Press. I'm going to give it just a minute. More people to come in. Smash the like button. CNN Bernie, please discuss why we hate you. All right. I'm going to let more people trickle in. Don't worry. Usually we have a countdown to give the audience more time to trickle in. Dem debate. Let me retweet it. We're going to start in 1 minute. So, Andrew Birmingham getting us started in the super chat. Smash that like button. Yes. I just read it. Thank you very much. You won't read it. I just read it. I'm going to try to keep up with the super chats. It's not always easy while you're reporting and things like that. So tonight was the 7th Democratic debate, and in my view was the worst moderated debate. And it's tough. I mean, between MSNBC, CNN, PBS, it's tough to really declare which one is the worst moderated debate. But to me, this was by far the worst moderated debate I've ever seen. The moderators it was right-wing talking point after right-wing talking point. It was insane framing of the questions. I'm not going to play any of the clips because CNN is fishing for copyright violations. We will have clips tomorrow, so I'll describe the clips if you missed it. But honestly, I think Fox News might have done a better job than CNN. I thought the worst framing and the most ridiculous framing was when Bernie Sanders came out, I thought, very credibly, very aggressively, and said, no, I didn't say that, in a private conversation with Elizabeth Warren. And then the CNN moderator turned around and said, Elizabeth Warren, how do you feel about Senator Sanders saying that in a private conversation? CNN just blatantly blew off what Bernie Sanders said. So we're going to get into all of it. Definitely. We got 100 people watching already. Smash the like button. It's a thumbs up button right under the video. That helps us get this to more people. And if you would be so kind, this is a super chat, so let us know how you feel. So there's going to be things I say that viewers like. There's going to be things I say that viewers probably don't like. But as always, I keep it real. So I'm going to start with what, in my view, was honestly, I think, politically speaking, among actual progressives, the end of Elizabeth Warren's political career. I think Elizabeth Warren has lit her political career into flames. I don't say that as a Bernie Sanders supporter. I say that as somebody who has watched her essentially evolve in the last calendar year from progressive, not as progressive as Bernie, but more progressive than somebody like Joe Biden, definitely more progressive than somebody like Donald Trump, to somebody who essentially traded in her integrity for out of desperation. So if you missed this moment, Elizabeth Warren in her desperation, and I went over this in my live stream a little bit earlier. I mean, she's desperate. All you got to do, just look at the numbers. Iowa, in October, she was at 22%. Now she's down at 15% in a recent poll. New Hampshire, 32% in October. She was leading in New Hampshire. Most recent poll, 18%. Nevada, fewer polls than other states, 21% down to 11%. Elizabeth Warren has freefalled, and her campaign thought it would be a great idea to leak to CNN. And I tweeted out before the debate, shockingly, a CNN anchor Erin Burnett literally said, obviously Elizabeth Warren's campaign leaked this to CNN. So at least somebody on CNN is stating the obvious that Elizabeth Warren's campaign leaked this to CNN. So what you have here is Elizabeth Warren essentially maybe interpreting something Bernie Sanders said during a private conversation to mean a woman couldn't win. Bernie Sanders obviously didn't say a woman couldn't win. You would have to think Bernie Sanders is just a bold-faced liar. Elizabeth Warren might have interpreted Bernie Sanders talking about the misogyny she would be up against in a private meeting as Bernie saying you wouldn't win. When CNN, to their credit, they didn't start the debate with this. I thought they were going to start the debate with this. When they asked Bernie Sanders, he did not equivocate. He said, I did not say that. And here's my record. I've been stating since the 1980s that a woman could be president and should be president. He stated, I lobbied to get Elizabeth Warren to run in 2015. She decided not to run. You could tell when somebody's lying. Bernie Sanders looked aggressively to the audience. He was passionate. He came across to me as credible. When CNN then turns around, takes Bernie Sanders' denial in a framing that is the most ludicrous framing of a question I've ever seen. Bernie Sanders just aggressively denied it. Instead of saying, Senator Warren, Senator Sanders says he didn't say this. What do you have to say? They basically turn around and pretend Bernie Sanders didn't just deny it. And they say, Senator Warren, how do you feel about Bernie Sanders saying a woman can't win the presidency? Just totally pretending Bernie Sanders didn't just say this. They are literally a paid super PAC for the establishment. And we got almost 300 people watching. 110 of you have pressed that like button. If everybody could press the thumbs up button, it makes a huge, huge difference. Keep it going in the super chat if you can. So, what's amazing to me, Elizabeth Warren, who again leaked this, her campaign leaked this to CNN. Terrible political calculation. It's already backfiring on her. They thought it would help her. They thought it might pick off some female Bernie supporters. I don't know what their thoughts were. She very feebly looks down and says, I didn't agree. I didn't agree. And then moves on. The best part is when she looks down and says, I didn't agree. She doesn't have the courage of her convictions. Like she didn't have the courage of her convictions to endorse Bernie in 2016. Like she didn't have the courage of her convictions to stand by Medicare for all, capital M Medicare for all. Like she didn't have the courage of her convictions to go out and scream to the rooftops about Native Americans and environmental activists getting the living beep smacked out of them. I'm not cursing because I don't want to get demonetized. Feel free to leave me super chats, and then I'll curse like a sailor. Andrew Birmingham, $2. ET at 2, Warren. Keep it coming in the super chats. Jen is going to feed me super chats if I miss any. So, what's incredible to me about all this? When she looks down, and clearly she can't even look at Bernie because she knows she's lying. That's how you know when people are lying. They look down or they look away. I am trained as a journalist to know when people are lying. They don't look at your eyes. Only the psychopaths look at your eyes. And that takes real skill to know when the psychopaths are lying. Then, when she's looking down because she is lying, she doubles down on the lie by pivoting into a talking point about how she is the only candidate on this stage that has defeated an incumbent Republican in the last 30 years. Not that that even matters. Like, who cares if you beat an incumbent Republican? I don't really think it matters that Bernie beat an incumbent Republican. But her campaign, who fed her that talking point, must have not checked that Bernie Sanders defeated an incumbent Republican in 1990. I failed math, but 1990, 2020, that's 30 years ago. So when Bernie Sanders interjects and says, I beat an incumbent Republican to become a congressman in Vermont, Elizabeth Warren, it's like she's short-circuiting. Her lie is just short-circuiting. She says, I said 30 years. And Bernie Sanders is literally doing the math in real time. 1990, 30 years. It's like she can't keep up with these lies. So, here is what probably happened, okay? And I said this earlier, and I'm going to say it again. Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren had a private meeting. The New York Times reported that private meeting right after. Thank you, Rick, $2. Liz and Bernie had annoyed words at the end. And Bernie Sanders probably said to her, are you prepared for the sexist, misogynist attacks that are going to come your way from Donald Trump? I could believe Bernie Sanders said that. Elizabeth Warren might have internalized that as he's saying I can't win because I'm a woman. Again, if I call you fat, that's me calling you fat. Very bad. I shouldn't. If I say to my girlfriend, I don't know if you look so great in that. I don't know if that looks so great. And she interprets it that I'm calling her fat. That doesn't mean I called you fat. That might mean I don't think it's a nice color on you. That might mean, I don't know, it doesn't fit correctly. She interpreted Bernie Sanders saying she can't win and then fed it and then said it to her friends and her campaign advisors after, like this is the Real Housewives or something, a ridiculous game of telephone. And then because she's desperate because of the polling numbers I just showed you, she leaked it to CNN. Honestly, I think Bernie Sanders failed, and I'm going to tell you why I think he failed, because I think Bernie Sanders did not do what he needed to do in this debate, and some of you are going to disagree with me and be mad that I criticized Bernie. Oh well, I'm going to keep it real. I think Bernie Sanders failed in what he needed to do because to me, it looked very clear that Bernie Sanders is hurt. You could tell Bernie Sanders, who frankly, in my view, Alex, $2 in the super chat, thank you. I think Bernie Sanders has been extremely naive for 4 years about politicians. I think he should have clobbered Hillary Clinton over the head when he had a chance, but he wants to be positive and she's a friend of mine. I think it's his biggest weakness as a politician. I think if he doesn't win the nomination, it's because he never crossed that line. His campaign advisors have told him, Bernie, take off the gloves. Occasionally, Bernie does take off the gloves. In this debate, I don't think he did take off the gloves. And if I'm watching, I'd love to know what Jen thinks. She's in the super chat. If we get more funding, we could figure out a way to bring her in live. I think that, to me, it looked like he was so hurt and still just so blindsided and shocked that Warren, basically disrespected him, breached a private meeting that was supposed to stay private, went on a political attack against him, not on policy, because she can't really compete against him on policy. It just seemed like he was so hurt that it kind of threw him off his game against what he really needed to do, which was clobber Joe Biden around the room. So before I get to what I think was Bernie's failure, I'm just going to say, I think Elizabeth Warren lit her political career in flames today, over the last 48 hours. I think Elizabeth Warren, if Bernie wins the nomination, is not going to be appointed as dog catcher in his administration. Thank you, Jedi Mullet, $5. I ran Joe's 1973 40,000 K a year through the inflation calculator. That comes in at 190K today. Yeah, poor Joe. Jack Jean, thank you, $99.99. So generous, Jack Jean. Thank you so much. It's an amazing amount. I really, really appreciate it. Seth Peterson, $35. Warren is not to be trusted. This article proves it. Current affairs. She is not credible. I agree. I don't trust her anymore. I barely trusted her before, but this is an integrity issue. Caesar Brito, $10. Keep up the fight, good brother. Thank you. So, Warren lit her political career because she has no home now. Bernie Sanders supporters, contrary to what the corporate media says, they don't forget. Although more Bernie supporters ended up voting for Hillary Clinton than Hillary Clinton voters voted for Barack Obama, they never say that. More Bernie supporters supported Hillary Clinton than Clinton supporters supported Obama. They're not going to forget a Warren, after she didn't endorse him in 2016, literally smearing him to the high heavens. There's only a few terrible... the worst things you could say about a man are sexist, rapist, those kinds of things about doing terrible things to women. She called him a sexist. So I think Elizabeth Warren has no political home now. I don't think she's going to be in a Bernie Sanders ticket if he wins. I don't think she would be in an administration of Bernie Sanders. I think she's going to have a hard time. If Bernie is president, I think she will be backbenched. And frankly, I mean, it doesn't matter now because she just won re-election for Senate. But when she runs for Senate re-election in 5 years, she's going to be primaried. She's going to be primaried from the left. And Bernie Sanders supporters, whether he's president at that time or not, the progressive wing is going to primary Elizabeth Warren. People are not going to forget this because this is not a policy difference. You could have policy disagreements. You could think, oh, we need to do a public option first. Thank you, Tom, $5 in the super chat. Thank you, Spiritis, $2. I'm so effing mad. I'm turning red. Thank you, Extropian, Status Coup, Dollar for Jen Initiative. Thank you, Awesome Gaming. What do you think about hashtag America Needs Jan? I think it's a joke. I didn't see that hashtag. I'm trying to keep up with the super chats. Keep them coming. So, I think Elizabeth Warren honestly disgraced herself. I think she showed who she is. Maybe when she came into politics, I think she had a lot of integrity. It has slowly left the building. I'm sorry to say that. I know some people watching who used to like Warren, love you, dear, might disagree with me, but she clearly made up this story. She clearly planted it with CNN. It backfired. Then when it backfired, she tried to pretend, I don't want to talk about this. And then when Bernie Sanders essentially called her a liar on national television, he called her a liar diplomatically, she looked down and doubled down and then pivoted to making another statement that's not true. So, thank you, Kush Renata, $5. If Bernie was the political version of Jesus, Warren became Judas during this cycle. Sad. Status Coup, $5. Jordan, check out the amazing Google Doc I'm making you with all the super chats. Read your text. Thank you, Jen. I will. Michael, member, I'm drunk. So, Warren's done. I'm sorry. She did nothing today that's going to revive her campaign. She might have rallied like Hillary Clinton's female supporters who have been trashing Bernie for 5 years, but that's not going to result in her winning. So then it comes down to, we're going to get to Bernie and Biden. Mayor Pete, net negative. I mean, I don't think he got destroyed, but I don't think he benefited. To me, he honestly, I think Tom Steyer had more moments than Mayor Pete. Tom Steyer, for God's sakes. So, Pete Buttigieg, who cares? Hey, old gringo, your text brought me here. YouTube failed. That's why we have created the text alert system. For those that don't know, join our text list. This is how you find out when we're live, because YouTube's definitely not going to let you know. You're not going to get a YouTube notification 75% of the time, but you can text 474747, type in COUP, and you'll get on the text list. Promise you, we're not going to text you when we wake up in the morning, when we're going to the bathroom. We're not going to bother you other than occasionally when we go live. So, forget Pete Buttigieg. It doesn't matter. And boy, do I have a video coming out tomorrow. If you didn't see it earlier in the live stream, it's going to blow your effing mind. So then it comes down to Bernie Sanders and Joe Biden. Some of you are not going to like what I'm going to say, but I'm just going to be honest. I think Bernie Sanders missed major opportunities. I think he tried to be diplomatic again with Joe Biden. Donald Trump, say what you want about Donald Trump. He's a vile, vile man. He's a liar. He's a racist. He's a sexist. He might be a rapist, according to multiple allegations. He doesn't equivocate. When he fights, he fights. People respond to that. I think that Bernie Sanders, his campaign has done a good job about this. His campaign has been going at him nonstop. Alex, $10 in the super chat. Been watching you since TYT. You're effing awesome. Thank you for keeping it real. Thank you. And spread the word, because YouTube is not pumping status coup into anybody's feeds. Everybody spread the word, status coup. So, Bernie Sanders, Joe Biden, again, he's sending John Kerry around Iowa in a no malarkey bus to say Joe Biden was against the war as soon as it started. Joe Biden, I mean, I've put it out. I reported this weeks ago that finally Bernie's campaign found the same clip. Joe Biden, 4 months after the Iraq War, was Joe Biden 4 months after the Iraq War was praising George W. Bush as a popular president, a bold leader, and we need to finish this job. 4 months after. Yet Joe Biden on stage continued to mislead that I was against it right after it started because Bush lied to us, this and that. Why did Bernie Sanders at that moment say, Vice President Biden, after you want to say that you were misled into the Iraq War? Fine. Even if we could give you the benefit of the doubt about that. It was apparent right away that this was a disaster, yet months later, you were giving speeches calling George W. Bush a bold leader and saying we need to finish this job. As The Intercept reported, a year later, he was still doubling down. You are lying. You are not being accurate about your record. Thank you, Josh, $5 in the super chat. Where was that from Bernie Sanders? When Joe Biden is saying we need to, any labor deal, any trade deal, we need to make sure environmental regulations are rigid and labor is at the table. Why is Bernie Sanders not saying, then why are you taking money from corporations and big donors that bash unions? Why are you doing fundraisers with Comcast, which is a union buster? Why are you doing fundraisers with Wall Street executives, financial law firms that literally represent companies that union bust? Thank you, Jack Jean. Another $100 in the super chat. Warren gave Bernie such an evil look. I'm not a woman, so I don't want to comment on her looks. But I'll say, Elizabeth Warren, she's gonna have to talk to Jesus, because she just lit her political career in flames. Thank you, Jack. You're amazing. Email us, info@statuscoup.com. Jack, I'd love to get on the phone and thank you. You've been so generous with these donations. We really, really appreciate it. info@statuscoup.com. So, what's amazing to me, and again, I really, truly think Bernie Sanders, I think he was thrown off his game, because I think Bernie genuinely, I could be wrong, I'm not a psychologist, I think he's genuinely just hurt and shocked by what Elizabeth Warren pulled, and it threw him off his game against Biden. Because in the last debate, Bernie was breathing fire at Joe Biden. It looked like Joe Biden's already falling apart brain was literally on the verge of collapse. I mean, I don't want Joe Biden to literally collapse. We're not calling for that, but I really think, I mean, Bernie Sanders, you could see it. When he was saying this, he not only was he agitated, he couldn't believe that somebody he has vouched for before she got into the Senate. I played these clips earlier. Bernie Sanders was pushing for President Obama to name Elizabeth Warren as head of the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau. Bernie Sanders was pushing for Elizabeth Warren to win her Senate job. Bernie Sanders lobbied for Elizabeth Warren to run in 2016. This is not some like casual friend. He has vouched and fought for Elizabeth Warren, and Elizabeth Warren just threw him under a megabus and took completely out of context and mischaracterized something he said in private. Thank you, John. $10. Jordan, I think Bernie is okay. Let the surrogates like Sirota and grassroots go after Biden for now. Sanders is second choice to Biden voters. Need them when he wins Iowa. That's the calculus. I know what you're saying, but you're wrong. And I love you, but you're wrong. I'll tell you why you're wrong. J Bird D, love you, Jordan. $4.99. Love you, Jordan. Thanks for everything you do. Chutzpah up the wazoo. Wish I had your nerve and acumen. Nerve and acumen, thank you, but sometimes it gets me into trouble. Why I think you're wrong? You could have David Sirota all over Twitter, right? And I think David Sirota is great. You could have his surrogates all over Twitter, this and that. Not everybody lives on Twitter. That is true. Not everybody lives on Twitter. Not everybody is consuming this day in and day out like us. Most people, the majority of voters in Iowa, in New Hampshire, in Nevada, in California, are basically like just suddenly paying attention now. Their main intake of this is the debates. It's not David Sirota on Twitter. Okay? So they're probably not seeing David Sirota's great clips on Twitter. I'm not saying that does nothing, but the main opportunity to reach these people before Iowa is now. Just like during the Brooklyn debate, where Bernie Sanders was teed up. Can you name anything Hillary Clinton has voted for or done because of the donation she took? He dodged it. I mean, I could have named 10 off the top of my head. So this is the opportunity, and he chose not to. He could have went after Biden on the bankruptcy bill. He could have went after Biden on voting to repeal Glass-Steagall. He could have gone after Biden. He was pushing the TPP in 2016. He could have gone after Biden, the fact that he's doing fundraisers with Wall Street executives, fossil fuel executives, big pharma executives. How are you middle-class Joe if you're doing all this? And by the way, you're concerned, that person who left the super chat, you're concerned that, well, Biden has a lot of the same voters. You don't want to alienate them. I guarantee you, there's a good 25 to 30% of Biden supporters. And the polls reflect this, by the way. The polls show this. Who have no idea about Joe Biden's voting record as a senator. Who have no idea about Joe Biden other than he was vice president. They probably do not know that he voted for those things. They probably don't know that he is currently fundraising from union busting companies. They probably don't know that he is literally doing fundraisers with lobbyists. Lobbyists are fundraising for him. They're raising tens of thousands of dollars for him. Bernie Sanders didn't have a bad debate, but I don't think he got the knockout punch he needed, and I think that's a problem because he's now going to be taken off the campaign trail for basically till Iowa. The impeachment trial starts Tuesday. I think Bernie Sanders' campaign, compared to all the others, Warren, who will be off the campaign trail because she will be in the Senate impeachment hearing, Klobuchar, same thing. I think Bernie's campaign can afford it more than them because Bernie's campaign has an unprecedented digital operation. And from what I've heard, Bernie's campaign has the best ground game, better than Warren's. So even without Bernie physically there, and I'm sure he'll go figure out a way to get there somehow when he can around the Senate impeachment hearing, but I think his campaign will survive. The problem is Biden doesn't have to sit in the Senate impeachment hearing. Biden is going to be all over Iowa by himself, basically, other than Pete, who I don't think is relevant at this point. And the impeachment hearing, by the way, the media might paint it favorably to Biden. They might make Biden look like this victim based on whatever comes out in the impeachment hearing. So I think that Bernie Sanders needed to hit Biden a lot harder, and he failed. That's the truth. He failed. You might not like it because a lot of you like Bernie and you don't like critical things being said about him, but that's the truth. In fairness, he had right-wing question after right-wing question. Instead of Biden getting all the heat, he was getting all the heat. I think that he was obviously thrown off his game by Warren's BS. But this was your opportunity, and he failed. I mean, there's no other way to say it. I think he had one good line on Iraq, but he didn't go further to say, you're lying. You are lying. You supported this after the war launched. You were praising George W. Bush. And if you were duped by George W. Bush when I saw it clearly, when you were praising George W. Bush months later after it was clearly a disaster, how do we know you're not going to be duped again as president? You think Joe Biden is going to know how to respond to that? Joe Biden's only response was, well, Barack picked me. This is ridiculous. This is like, well, you know, I didn't get picked last in gym class. Thank you, J999. Thank you, Jordan, from Jason and Celia. We appreciate it. Thank you. Mind the North Star, $5. Bernie Sanders' overwhelming kindness helps and hurts him. It fuels his great policies, but holds him back when he needs to attack. I agree. I completely agree. I think Bernie Sanders answered Elizabeth Warren perfectly. I think he showed amazing restraint against Elizabeth Warren when she was lying and calling him a sexist and smearing him. Sarah, $10. Hi, Jordan. More Housewives references, please. I've never watched The Housewives in my life. I know Jen does. I know my girlfriend does. I know my mother does. But frankly, CNN is the Real Housewives of terrible corporate media. And by the way, before the debate, and you could check my Twitter on this, CNN's Erin Burnett, who I rarely credit. She is an out-of-touch, Wall Street-loving stooge. But she actually publicly said, why is Warren backing away from this? She clearly leaked it to CNN. It's clear that Warren and her campaign leaked this to CNN. She was okay with it when she leaked it. Now she's saying she doesn't want to talk about it. So I don't think Bernie did what he had to do tonight. I don't think it means he's going to lose Iowa, but I think he missed opportunities. Yes, his campaign will still go after Biden. I think this Warren-Bernie thing is basically over. Unless she says, Bernie came into my room and stole my tooth fairy bunny. She could say that. I have never watched The Housewives, Jen. Don't spread fake news. I have never, ever watched The Housewives. I have watched, 4 Weddings? 4 Dresses? That show where couples compete at their nuptials. That was good. But I've never watched Real Housewives. Don't spread fake news. But I honestly think what is really the most evident to me here, and it's not being talked about it, and no one is talking about it, but what is very evident to me, the DNC has basically outsourced its rigging to the networks. And it's clear as day. I mean, all you got to do, look at this. I showed you this earlier.
Our question to say, did you say this or not? She says you had this conversation. You say you didn't say it. What happened?
So there is this, I'm going to try again, because again, Sanders doesn't have any supporters at this table, so I will play the role.
I can jump in.
But here's the idea. Here's an argument. I have heard plenty of Democratic women say that they are afraid that a woman cannot win. I'm sure that you've heard that, if not maybe even said it at one point or another yourselves. Sanders has his certain blunt style. Maybe it came out wrong. Is that possible?
Well, I am willing to believe a lot of very bad things about Bernie Sanders. It doesn't ring true to me that he would genuinely believe that a woman could not run and win as president. He got clobbered by Hillary last time around, so he's experienced this before.
He doesn't seem to know that yet.
But so that doesn't ring exactly true to me, and I think he likely could have been handicapping the race in a very clumsy way. The other thing is, these folks are going to fight each other. it's like going on The Bachelorette and expecting to find friends. Like, that's not what they're doing here. They're looking for votes. They're competing against each other. And he should make the point, frankly, like, look, there were two people in the room, and my colleague, Senator Warren, has a history of stretching the truth, and one of her largest lies, her actual DNA contradicts her.
So another issue.
Ooh, low blow, except she pretended to be a Native American. So
you want to?
that was the low blow.
Very quickly, here's the thing, though. It's not just about what may or may not have been said in this conversation. Bernie came into this race with a bit of a legacy. The Bernie bros were known to have been horrible to women online. I know plenty of women who would say things like, I mean, there were secret groups of women who didn't want to have to deal with the Bernie bros, so they didn't want to engage online. And the Bernie bros, again, they're pretty obnoxious, and they're very sexist and misogynist. So part of it is, you know, it's part of the reason why when he endorsed Cenk Uygur and then had to pull that back because of those comments. I mean, he did come in with an impression, and a lot of women still feeling pretty raw from 2016 about the fact that, you know, he didn't stand up for Hillary or have her back or campaign for her, I think, as vigorously as he could have. But also, you know, he never really took on the Bernie bros and said, let's calm down a bit.
No, that's not true. I interviewed him and I did ask him about.
Who is that? That's Karen Finney. Who is Karen Finney? You know. Ooh, sorry. 1 second. Just a senior advisor to the DNC on cable news, trashing Bernie Sanders with a bunch of nonsense. The same Karen Finney that just last year got $10,000 from the DNC. Do we need to disclose that if we're CNN? Of course not. Does the DNC have to disclose that their senior advisors are going around trashing Bernie Sanders? Of course not. And by the way, does anybody think that the DNC is not involved behind the scenes when it comes to whether Warren's planting these stories with CNN, the DNC in the back room playing bridge, being the bridge to some of these plants? You think the DNC isn't planting some of these stories? The Daily Beast today reported some nonsense story that, Bernie's campaign is training volunteers in New Hampshire to say Bernie's the only candidate for Medicare for all. He is. Elizabeth Warren's plan is a public option. But does anyone think the DNC, maybe they're smarter this time, they're not actually putting it in emails in the event that they get hacked or leaked or whatever? The DNC is behind the scenes rigging it. They're sending their senior advisors, their consultants that they're paying thousands of dollars to go on CNN and ignite this Bernie Bros nonsense. Oh, by the way, she was also a senior communications advisor for Hillary Clinton's campaign in 2016. Listen, I'm not saying Bernie Sanders is perfect. Are there tales of Bernie Sanders supporters on Twitter probably going too far? Of course there are. Just like there's probably tales of Kamala Harris supporters going too far and Biden supporters going too far. It's Twitter. It's Facebook. It's a fucking cesspool. Ooh, demonetized. Swear jar. I've probably gone too far. It's Twitter. Is Bernie Sanders responsible if some of his supporters weren't nice enough to Queen Hillary's supporters? Give me a fucking break. This isn't high school. And this is what identity politics is. When you can't actually discredit, when you can't actually defend yourself on policy, because how are you going to defend yourself on being part of a party that has sold its soul and sold working people and black people and brown people and indigenous people and poor white people, sold their jobs to China and Mexico, sold their communities to Wall Street, allowed Wall Street and corporate America to write the trade deals? How are you going to actually defend yourself on policy? Well, you're just going to say racist, sexist, racist, sexist, racist, sexist. This is what they've been doing. This is why, by the way, originally, all of these folks were dying for Kamala Harris to launch, because that was a double, if you watch Harry Potter, it's like the invisibility cloak. Kamala Harris was a double invisibility cloak. You get to say you're sexist and racist. Identity politics is a real thing. It doesn't mean there's not racism. It doesn't mean there's not sexism. Of course there is. Last time I checked, Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez defeated the number 3 Democrat in the country. Last time I checked, a lot of women just won in the midterms. Mostly centrist women, but women nonetheless. And by the way, if Hillary Clinton would have picked Elizabeth Warren as her vice president, which I think is why Elizabeth Warren sold Bernie Sanders out in 2016, she might have won the presidency. It was her decision to pick Tim Kaine, a Republican basically, that probably is why she lost. So what happens now? If I was Bernie Sanders' campaign, I'm not advocating adopt borrowing from Trump on policy or racism. But if I was Bernie Sanders' campaign, I would go on a fucking scorched earth campaign against the media. They've kind of straddled the line. Forget it. It's time to go at CNN hardcore. It's time to go at MSNBC, New York Times, Washington Post, all of them. You know who has? Somebody made a joke. Lice has a higher approval rating than the media in this country. Bernie Sanders' campaign should attack, not calling them fake news, not calling for violence, of course not. He needs to attack the media. And he's got the campaign to do it. That's number one. Number two, he needs to utilize independent media. Of course, come on status coup. He needs to go on every independent outlet twice in the next few weeks. He also, this is key, it's not a big population. Iowa has some Latinos. It has some black people. I'm sure his campaign is already reaching out to those places. And frankly, I think he needs to go nuclear on Elizabeth Warren. I was all for him focusing on Biden, but I think Elizabeth Warren torpedoed her campaign today. Over the last 48 hours, I think she torpedoed her campaign. I think Bernie Sanders could actually pick off some of Elizabeth Warren's support, particularly in Iowa. I think there's a lot of people, including women, honestly, that probably watched Elizabeth Warren and said, something doesn't smell right here. Like, these voters probably thought, like, yeah, I want a woman president. Oh, it's time for Bernie to pass the torch. I like Warren's plans. But looked at this and thought, something doesn't smell right here. And Bernie's denying it. And, like, you're looking down and looking around the room here. I think Bernie Sanders needs to go nuclear on her. Not on this sexism thing, but needs to say, you're not capital P progressive. I mean, Elizabeth Warren is voting for a trade deal that continues to offshore jobs to Mexico and China and doesn't even mention the term climate change. Meanwhile, she's doing ads that she's for the Green New Deal. Give me a fucking break. Jarvis, thank you, $9.99 in the super chat. I mean, it's ridiculous. Who is buying this nonsense? And I got to tell you something. Elizabeth Warren, I don't know where she's going to go. Her only option at this point is just to do the full Monty and just become Nancy Pelosi, only a little bit younger, and just become another centrist neoliberal corporate shill. I think Elizabeth Warren, deep down, I think her heart was in the right place, and she believes in regulating Wall Street. But as a person, she doesn't have courage of her convictions. And frankly, she is... I mean, the bottom line is, and Sean King tweeted this out, when Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren was incorrect. When Bernie Sanders, when he defeated a Republican to become Congressman Bernie Sanders in 1990, Elizabeth Warren falsely said, I'm the only person up here who beat an incumbent Republican. No, Bernie did in 1990. Elizabeth Warren was still a Republican. So to me, the reason Elizabeth Warren cannot match Bernie Sanders on policy, the reason Elizabeth Warren has moonwalked away from progressive goals, the reason that she will never go all the way. Oh, I'll cap your student loan debt at $50,000. Yeah, $50,000 in student loan debt is like 3 meals in the cafeteria. most people have way more student loan debt than $50,000 is because she still has some conservatism in her. I mean, that's the truth. I don't think all conservatives are bad people. I've met a lot of Republicans out there that are closet progressives. They just don't know it. I think she truly believes in regulating Wall Street and these things. But I also think she's a fucking liar. I also think she's lacking integrity. I also think she just threw somebody under a bus that literally has fought for her time and time again. She threw somebody under the bus who was still praising her after she left him at the altar in 2016. And by the way, I got news for you folks. I'm just keeping it real. Denise, $10. The loose theory in Facebook groups is Warren is running interference for Biden if they're going to join forces. Obama plans to run interference. Possible. I don't think Biden will pick Elizabeth Warren as vice president. I think he's going to pick Kamala Harris, but that's just my opinion. I think Biden's going to pick Kamala Harris. By then, the whole busing thing will be a distant memory, and Biden wants to lock down the black vote, and that's how he's going to do it. But to me, Sarah, by the way, so happy you're joining us. My girlfriend's best friend. Thank you for watching, and thanks for your donation. To me, I think that really tonight might screw up Bernie Sanders' chances if he becomes the nominee. Because if he becomes the nominee, there is a good chance that he's not going to get enough pledge delegates. If all these candidates stay in, and I think Pete is bankrolled and his head is big enough to stay until the convention. He's got enough people in the wine cave funding him. Pete's staying in to the convention. Klobuchar, I think, is going to drop out after Iowa. Steyer has enough money to stay in probably till 2030. Warren is going to stay in. Biden's obviously going to stay in. Bernie might not get enough delegates, which then brings it to the second ballot. Super delegates are not coming to Jesus and voting for Bernie Sanders. They will say to hell with democracy, even if Bernie has the most pledged delegates. We're taking over here. And then it comes down to, will Warren's delegates move over to Bernie? Well, if Elizabeth Warren is going to put the final nail in Bernie's political coffin and say, he said something to me at a private meeting that I manipulated the media about. I interpreted it that he was saying I couldn't win, so no, I'm not giving my delegates. Then super delegates are going to take this election. And by the way, people saying Elizabeth Warren is a backstabber, you're incorrect. She's a front stabber. She stabbed him in the front. This was not subtle at all. Actually, you know what? Since I have it, let me just play the clip where CNN, I mean, you literally can't make this stuff up. CNN literally just openly acknowledged what was obvious to anyone with a brain. Here we go.
Clear, she knew about this. Warren had no problem with this story yesterday. It was clearly leaked by her team to CNN. It came out more than a year after the meeting. It came out on the eve of a debate. This is pretty clear. She knew about this. She sanctioned it. Everything around it indicates that. Why is she pumping the brakes now, indicating don't want to talk about this anymore? Warren had no problem with this story yesterday. It was clearly leaked by her team to CNN. It came out more than a year after the meeting. It came out on the eve of a debate. This is pretty clear. She knew about this. She sanctioned it. Everything around it indicates that. Why is she pumping the brakes now, indicating don't want to?
What's incredible about this? Erin Burnett, who I rarely credit. So credit to her. She wasn't the reporter. But Erin Burnett exercised more journalistic cynicism, more journalistic suspicion, more journalistic caution than the actual journalist who broke the story. Erin Burnett was like, wait a minute. You got 4 people from Elizabeth Warren's campaign saying Bernie Sanders said this? The New York Times reported on this meeting after it happened. Warren's people didn't tell the New York Times this then. You're leaking this to me. So basically, I'm just going to pass off your version of events as news? Fuck that. Thank you, JK. $5. Can you imagine the uproar if the superdelegates did that? I don't think this country would survive it. I don't think I don't want to create fear and a violent scenario, but I think there would be really problems. I think there would be real problems if that happened, if the superdelegates did that. So, bottom line, to wrap this up, because it's almost midnight, thank you so much for the super chats. Thanks for tuning in. If we have any new viewers, we're live every day, Monday through Friday, 5 o'clock Eastern, live Sundays, noon Eastern, so we're live 6 days a week. We're a little old startup. We don't have any funding from donors, corporate donors, Wall Street, Big Pharma, fossil fuels, none of that. We're funded by you. We're almost at 800 paid members. Statuscoup.com/join. You can become a member for as low as $5 a month. You get bonus content, bonus videos, and you get to help us grow this list. We're going all over the country, reporting in the field on the stories that matter. YouTube is throttling us like nobody's business. We are basically hidden in a cave on YouTube. We don't show up in people's recommended feeds. People don't see when we're live, so we depend on our viewers to sustain us. Keep it coming, statuscoup.com/join. Our goal is to get to 1,000 ASAP, but we got to get to 800 first. Sign up if you got $5 to $10 a month. It makes a big difference. So the last thing I'll say, and thank you to Jen, who's in the super chat, staying up late with us. My girlfriend is in the super chat, everybody who's watching us. Last thing I'll say is I think Bernie Sanders missed an opportunity. Like I said, I think Bernie Sanders, if he never becomes president, he has himself to blame. Of course, CNN is to blame. All of them are to blame. But Bernie Sanders fundamentally wanted to maintain Washington niceties and never cross the line to just clobbering Joe Biden over the fucking head. That he wanted to maintain civility and my friend, and I don't want to go too hard. And the truth is, to win, he needs to go harder. His campaign has been going harder, but Bernie Sanders has this strange habit of being a fire-breathing Game of Thrones Darth Raggi dragon in one debate, and kind of being like, not that way the next debate. You got to be consistent, and he's not. Tonight, again, I think he lacked that consistency. I honestly think he's really hurt and shocked by what Elizabeth Warren did, and I think it threw him off against Biden. I think the Iowa caucus is going to be won or lost on the ground. I think Bernie Sanders' campaign organizing seems to be working by the polls. He's surging in Iowa. He's surging in New Hampshire. New poll has him up in California. New poll, Emerson just came out today, has him leading among independents and younger voters. And a new poll by Vice and Ipsos has him tied with Joe Biden among African Americans. He is surging. But I will tell you this, folks, and I tweeted it, and I'm going to tell you, it ain't over. I think the next hits are coming from Biden's people, with the assist of Hillary Clinton's people, with the assist of Obama's people. I think Biden, Hillary, Obama world, they're all going to come together in the next 2.5 weeks. The next shoe to drop, they're going to find shit Bernie Sanders said favorably about Fidel Castro. They're going to find things Bernie Sanders said favorably about the Nicaraguan people. They're going to find things that Bernie Sanders said favorably about Russia. They probably already found them and are waiting to drop them. They're going to paint Bernie Sanders as a communist sympathizer. I'm promising you, save this. That's what's coming next. I assume his campaign is ready for it. It's a much more organized and well-oiled machine this time around. But that's what's coming. So if you're a Bernie supporter watching, be prepared. They're going to try to make this guy a pinko commie and scare the living hell out of the people of Iowa and New Hampshire. Whether it works, I don't know. But that's what's coming. That's what's coming next. Thank you for watching. I believe I'll be live tomorrow. I'm kind of temporarily moving tomorrow. So I think I'll be live tomorrow, but not positive. We will have new videos to publish. Marcus, who's freelancing for us in Iowa, tonight reported from a Bernie Sanders debate watch party, so we'll have interviews from that. We also have interviews he did with the climate activists from Sunrise Movement, so we're going to have new reporting from the campaign trail. We'll also have new videos that I did in the field, so we got a lot more to come. Don't rely on YouTube to notify you, so what I tell people, just check back to Status Coup. We usually start publishing new videos in the morning, around 10 in the morning Eastern. That's 7 a.m. Pacific. So maybe just put it on your refrigerator. We usually start posting around 10 a.m. Eastern, 7 a.m. Pacific, and then we usually post after that every hour and a half, maybe every 2 hours. So thank you for watching. You can help us get around this YouTube suppression. Join our text list. Enter text 474747. Enter COUP. 474747. Enter COUP. Also, join our email list, statuscoup.com. You'll get a pop-up. Enter your email. We will not spam you. We will not email you 50 times a week. We email once in a while. Exclusive breaking news first. Occasionally asking you for a few bucks. Join our email list. We got to grow. Thank you so much for watching. See you tomorrow. Peace out.